Good evening. We'd like to thank all of our attendance area review volunteers for joining us online today in order to represent your school communities. My name is Sheila Powell, and with me this evening is Dennis Wright. We are both superintendents of student achievement for schools in Oxford County. Joining us are Superintendents Lynn Griffith-Jones and Superintendent Paul Sador. We would ask if you do have your microphone on to mute your mic at this time, and you will have an opportunity to ask questions a bit later on. We are here to present the proposed options for the Oxford North Elementary Panel Attendance Area Review. This is a boundary review that is necessary to create an attendance area for the approved new school in North Woodstock. This review is also important for our long-term planning in Oxford County. Superintendent Jeff Vogt, Ben Puznov, and Eric Miles from our Facility Services and Capital Planning team are also with us this evening.
Thank you, Sheila. This meeting is the first step in the public consultation process for this review and is intended to provide school communities with information regarding what is being considered and how to provide the board with feedback. The agenda for this evening is on your screen right now. We'll first provide background regarding the review and detail the process, procedure, document, and timelines. This will be followed by a summary of the roles and responsibilities of Attendance Area Review Committee members and a presentation of the initial Attendance Area Review report. We will then have an opportunity for committee members to ask questions. An overview of next steps will conclude this evening's session. I will now pass the presentation over to Ben to provide an overview of the attendance area review process.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Wright. Before outlining the proposed boundary changes under consideration, we're going to start by providing an overview of this attendance area review process and the role of attendance area review committee members. So an attendance area review is a process by which Thames Valley changes boundaries to optimize enrollment and balance attendance across specific geographic areas. This is typically required because of growing or declining enrollment, and it's done in order to ensure we continue offering optimal learning environments for all of our students. When new schools are approved, such as the case in North Woodstock, a new boundary is required for that school, so an attendance area review is needed in order to do so. Thames Valley does have a procedure for attendance area reviews, and this is available through our website. The website that's shown on the screen there, tvdsb.ca/ONR, has many other great resources, including a question and answer page, as well as interactive maps. Prior to considering a boundary review, trustees receive what's known as an initial attendance area review report from administration. So that report details current and potential attendance areas, current enrollment and accommodations, enrollment projections, current and proposed residential developments, and community trends, as well as a potential timeline for implementation of any changes. If trustees initiate the boundary process, formal public consultation is then undertaken through the formation of an attendance area review committee and school-level subcommittees, whose feedback and input is considered to trustees during the decision-making process. The initial attendance area review report for this particular review was presented to trustees last April at the Planning and Priorities Advisory Committee meeting. At this meeting, administration was asked to proceed with obtaining public feedback. Volunteers to sit on attendance area review committees have since been recruited with the help of principals from each of the schools, and we want to sincerely thank you for helping us lead this important process. Following this evening's attendance area review committee meeting, AARC members for each school will be asked to host school-level meetings in order to obtain feedback regarding the boundary changes under consideration from each school community. The AARC members from each school subcommittee will need to designate a chair and a secretary in order to help manage the discussion and to record feedback. Following the receipt of this feedback from school communities, administration will review all of the comments provided and will prepare what's known as a final attendance area review report. Our goal, always through these review processes and the public consultation, is to strengthen the options under consideration. As part of the attendance area review process, Members of the public will also be provided an opportunity to make delegations to the Board of Trustees regarding that final report and the recommendations. This would then be followed by a decision of the Board of Trustees at a subsequent board meeting. Once a decision is made, administration will be working closely with communities and establishing transition committees to implement the boundary changes in accordance with the timelines established by trustees. This next slide provides an overview of the timeline for this particular boundary review process. So following this evening's AARC meeting, it's expected that the school-level attendance area review subcommittee meetings to obtain feedback will be held November through January. In accordance with the procedure, there are a number of important dates specifically related to the public consultation process. So December 11th is the deadline for requests to be made for additional information from TVDSB administration by school subcommittees. This information would be intended to assist school communities with evaluating the options under consideration. Any requests that are received will be answered by administration, and all the information that's provided will be distributed to all subcommittees. January 11th will be the last date for school attendance area review subcommittee meetings. And then finally, January 25th is the deadline for subcommittees to submit reports to administration on their school community's input. Administration will then be reviewing the public feedback and then assembling that final attendance area review report for trustees' consideration. Presentation of the final report, as well as public delegations and the trustee decision, are expected to occur in March and April, with an implementation planned for September of 2026, and that's, of course, dependent on the opening of the new Woodstock Elementary School on that date. As mentioned, the Attendance Area Review Committee is made up of volunteers from each school that's involved in the Attendance Area Review. So that includes parents and caregivers, chair of the school council, and the chair of the Home and School Association. Attendance Area Review Committee members are vital to the success of the process, and they're critical for obtaining feedback from school communities regarding the boundary change options under consideration. In addition to running their respective school-level subcommittee meetings, committee members are responsible for producing a subcommittee report that documents the feedback from the school community. After this meeting this evening, we will be distributing template documents to the Attendance Area Review Committee members in order to assist with running the meetings. So that would include agenda and minute-taking documents, as well as a subcommittee report template. This presentation deck that you're going to hear this evening will also be provided, and that we ask that please be included in the presentations to your school communities. Subcommittees are, of course, welcome to share any other information with their school communities as you see fit. Thames Valley will act as a resource following the meetings if any questions or additional information is required in order to evaluate the potential boundary changes under consideration. So please do not hesitate to reach out to the planning team if you need any support. At this point, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Eric Miles, who will review the initial attendance area review report.
Thanks, Ben. So I'll now provide an overview of the objectives of this review and some background information about the schools that are involved. So in undertaking this review, our team had three specific objectives. First, we need to create an attendance area for the new North Woodstock Elementary School. We are also seeking to balance enrollment across North Oxford in a thoughtful and practical manner so that schools can be well utilized. And finally, the third objective is to ensure the long-term viability of all schools in the area. I'll now provide a high-level overview of each school involved in the review. So in addition to the new Woodstock Elementary School, 7 schools are planned to be included in the review. Starting with Zoro Highland Park, this school has a capacity of 397 students and is currently the holding school for the 3 holding zones in North Woodstock. It is also the interim accommodation school for new registrations within the Woodstock portion of the Hickson Central attendance area. Enrollment at Zoro Highland Park will decrease once the new North Woodstock School opens. Hickson Central has a capacity of 481 and is currently over capacity due to rapid development activity in North Woodstock. Students residing in North Woodstock that attend Hickson Central will be redesignated to a more proximal school through this review, so we have developed some options to ensure Hickson Central will be properly utilized. Innerkip Central has an OTG of 279. this school is currently at capacity, but will be growing rapidly due to development occurring in the area. One of the goals of this review is to manage this enrollment growth through boundary changes. Blenheim District Public School has a capacity of 366. As you'll see in the presentation, the school has some available space to help manage enrollment in the area. Central Public School in Woodstock has a capacity of 377 pupil places. This school is currently over capacity as a result of the holding zones in North Woodstock that previously designated students to this school. Enrollment will decrease upon the opening of the new North Woodstock Elementary School, and Central will have available space to assist with managing enrollment in Woodstock. As you'll hear shortly, a number of potential boundary changes have been developed for this school. Northdale has a capacity of 328. This school is over capacity, but enrollment is projected to decline and stabilize. We've included Northdale in the review to consider a potential attendance area change with Central due to an irregular boundary between the two schools. Eastdale has a capacity of 314 students. It is currently below capacity, but is projected to grow due to development in the Southwest Woodstock holding zone that was established here last year. There is the potential to designate a portion of Eastdale's attendance area to Central in order to designate students to a more proximal elementary school that will have space following the opening of the new school. Finally, the new North Woodstock Elementary School was approved for a capacity of 660 students, but this has been increased to 856 as a result of a scope change request to the Ministry of Education, which was approved earlier this year. We are working toward a September 2026 opening for this school, which is projected to be at capacity upon opening, but is projected to grow in the coming years. So before we get into the presentation of the proposed options, we would like to highlight the mapping tool that is on the project website. So if you visit the project website at the link that is shown on this slide, you can scroll to the additional details section and select proposed changes in maps. From here, you can click on your school and select Open Interactive Map. This will allow you to search your address to confirm if you are impacted by any of the potential boundary changes. So to provide some additional context around what is being proposed, this slide shows the utilizations of the schools involved in this review as of the 2022-23 school year. As you can see, only Hickson Central, Northdale, and Central Public School were over capacity, as shown in red. However, the next slide will show that projected utilizations are expected to increase at some of the schools and grow above capacity in the coming years. And this is mainly due to the growth happening in North Woodstock and other parts of North Oxford. So under a status quo scenario, meaning no boundary changes and without the opening of the new school, Zora Highland Park and Innerkip Central are also projected to be over capacity by 2026, with Blenheim District and Eastdale projected to grow as well. This growth is attributed to development in North Woodstock, the Southwest Woodstock holding zone, which is designated to attend Eastdale, as well as development in Innerkip in the Blenheim District attendance area. Most of the pressure is focused on the schools receiving students from North Woodstock, including Hickson Central, Zora Highland Park, and Central Public School. When the new school opens in North Woodstock, a lot of these students will be assigned to the new school, which will relieve pressure in these areas. So in terms of residential development, which will contribute to future enrollment, this map shows where proposed or approved residential developments are located. As you can see, the majority is occurring in the north part of Woodstock, with other pockets of development concentrated in Innerkip, Drumbo, Embro, and Bright. So we will now walk through the potential boundary changes, beginning with Zora Highland Park. While no adjustments are proposed for this attendance area, it is included in the review as it is currently receiving students from the North Woodstock holding zones and from the portion of the Hickson Central attendance area located in the city of Woodstock. Students from the North Woodstock holding zones were previously designated to Central Public School. It is important to note that students from the North Woodstock holding zones and from the Hickson Central attendance area are not meant to be permanently accommodated at Zora Highland Park. After these students are redesignated through this review to other schools, the utilization at Zora Highland Park is projected to decrease to 79% in 2026 before increasing to full capacity by 2031. The factors that are contributing to the projected growth here include development activity in Embro and higher birth rates in recent years. With respect to Hickson Central, portions of the attendance area within the north part of the city of Woodstock are proposed to be redesignated to the new North Woodstock Elementary School and Central Public School. In addition, the north portion of the Interkip Central attendance area is also proposed to be designated to Hickson Central. It should be noted that there was originally 2 options for Hickson Central proposed through the initial attendance area report. These options were based on whether the scope change request to increase the size of the new North Woodstock School was approved. As that request has been approved, as I mentioned, the option that resulted in fewer students from North Woodstock attending the new school has been removed from consideration. Under the proposed option for Hickson Central, enrollment at this school would decrease to 67% in 2026 before growing to 72% in 2031, which is an efficient utilization rate that supports the long-term viability of this school. Interkip Central has a current utilization of 100%, but is projected to experience enrollment pressure from ongoing and planned development activity in the community of Interkip. Under a status quo scenario, the utilization of this school is projected to reach 148% by 2026 and 192% by 2031. To relieve this pressure, it is proposed that portions of the attendance area be redesignated to Hickson Central, Blenheim District, and the new North Woodstock Elementary School, as shown on this slide. The proposed changes would result in a utilization of 137% by 2026, down from 148%, and 161% by 2031, down from 192%. The portion of the attendance area that would be designated to the new school in North Woodstock currently has no students, but an active development application on these lands is expected to yield approximately 79 students. Blenheim District has a current utilization of 83%, but is projected to grow to 91% by 2026 and 101% by 2031 as a result of new development in Blenheim. Based on the proposed change, the school's utilization would increase to 96% by 2026 and 106% by 2031. This brings us to Northdale Public School, which is currently above capacity at 120%, but utilization is projected to decline to 108% by 2026 and 102% by 2031. As noted, it is included in this review to alter a portion of the school's southern boundary that borders the Central Public School attendance area. As you can see on this slide, the boundary in this area is irregularly shaped and does not follow a municipal road. To create a more practical attendance area in this location, it is proposed that the boundary be adjusted to follow Canterbury Street, Riddell Street, and Drew Street. This change would designate a small number of students from Northdale to Central, which is a more proximal school for the impacted students. As a result of this move, the utilization of Northdale would decrease to 107% in 2026 and 101% in 2031. Central Public School is currently overutilized at 137%. This enrollment pressure is a result of Central being the previous holding school for the North Woodstock holding zones. To relieve this enrollment pressure, new students in the holding zones are now designated to Zora Highland Park as of the start of the previous school year. When the new North Woodstock Elementary School opens, a large portion of the holding students at Central are proposed to be redesignated to this new school. If all holding students are removed from Central, utilization would decline to 78% in 2026 before increasing to 85% in 2031. To help balance enrollment at Central after the new school in North Woodstock opens, 2 options have been formulated for this school. Option 1 involves a portion of the Hickson Central attendance area in the westerly North Woodstock holding zone being designated to Central. So on this slide, we've shown the projected utilization with the holding zone students remaining, the impact of all holding zone students leaving, and then what would happen if the proposed changes under option 1 were implemented. Under this option, Central would have a projected utilization of 87% in 2026 and 91% in 2031. So the same changes as proposed for option 1 are included in option 2, with the addition of the satellite attendance area currently designated to Eastdale Public School. This satellite area was redesignated from Oliver Stevens to Eastdale at the start of the 2022-23 school year as a result of the Oxford County French Immersion and City of Woodstock Elementary Panel Attendance Area Review that was completed in 2021. So designating this area to Central in combination with the other boundary changes noted under option 1 would result in a projected utilization of 110% in 2026 and 104% in 2031. Eastdale has a current utilization of 84%. Under a status quo scenario, it is projected to grow to 94% by 2026 and 103% by 2031. This is a result of new development occurring in the Southwest Woodstock holding zone. If the potential changes included in this option were implemented, Eastdale would decrease to 74% utilization by 2026 and grow to 87% by 2031. This option was included in the review as it would move students from the satellite attendance area to a closer school and would help to fully utilize Central Public School after the new North Woodstock School opens. So this brings us to the new North Woodstock Elementary School. In light of the scope change being approved by the ministry to increase the size of the school, there is now only one proposed option for this school's boundary. Accordingly, the proposed boundary includes the portion of the Hickson Central attendance area in North Woodstock, the two eastern North Woodstock holding zones, and a portion of the Interkip Central attendance area in the northeast quadrant of the city of Woodstock. This option will allow students in North Woodstock to attend a school in their community and will reduce busing needs from this part of the city. The proposed boundary would result in a utilization for the new school of 101% in 2026 upon opening and 134% in 2031, and a utilization for Hickson Central of 67% in 2026 and 72% in 2031. So this concludes all of the potential options. I'm now going to hand it over to Superintendents Powell and Wright to facilitate the Q&A portion of this evening's agenda. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Eric and Ben. At this time, the team would be happy to take any questions. There is an opportunity right within your team setting for Q&A to post your questions, which we will pass along to our experts on our team to answer on your behalf. So please don't be shy. Post any questions that you might have. We do see a hand up, and we'd be happy to take that question live.
First on the list is Sean Noon.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Wright. Just a quick question. I noticed that the new school is going to be at 134% capacity by 2031. Does that mean we're going to be opening a new school and basically be putting portables on the property right away?
I'll pass that over to Manager Puznev.
Thank you very much for the question. So based on current projections, we do anticipate that the school is going to open at capacity. Over time, we recognize that there is ongoing development activity occurring in North Woodstock, so the area is growing very rapidly, and actually all of North Oxford is growing. So we certainly anticipate having additional capital needs here in the future. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Manager Puznev. Next on the list, we have Melissa Wheaton. Go ahead, Melissa.
Hi, sorry about that. So I actually have a two-part question. We're currently located at Hickson Central, and by the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like it really matters if we're in North Woodstock, whether we can stay at Hickson or not. Is that correct assumption?
Manager Puznev, would you like to speak to that question specifically?
Sure, thank you, Superintendent Powell. I'm wondering, Eric, if you could just put up the attendance area for the new school as proposed on the screen here.
So basically this side of 17.
Correct, so what's up on the screen here, so shown in the dashed lines, is the proposed attendance area for the new school. So any students currently attending other schools would be designated to the new Woodstock Elementary School upon its opening in September of 2026.
So is there any way to not move to the new school? The kids have had a lot of upheaval over the last few years that I personally am not a fan of the fact that I'm going to have to pull my child out of the school that she's known for the last 5, 6, 7 years and move her to a new school where she has to adjust to new teachers, new, everything. Is there an option to keep our child at the school that they've been used to, and then when they go on to high school, they just move on?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Melissa. There is a boundary request process. comes through the superintendent of education for unique circumstances. So although the boundaries will change, there's the potential that some people are legacied. For example, sometimes we legacy grade 8 students to stay at a school so they can graduate. And there are sometimes some other special circumstances that occur, and those processes occur through the school to the school superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to Superintendent Wright's very eloquent response, all of our committees will also have the opportunity for public input. And if that's something your committee feels strongly about, the opportunity to have legacy students, in other words, for students to remain at the school, you can certainly provide that in your committee's public input if the teams choose to present at the board during that time.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that.
Our next question, I think, comes to us from Emily Moitoso.
Hi, I was just wondering, will we all be receiving this presentation deck so that we can reference it for our future meetings?
Absolutely. I believe that will be sent to you probably tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Okay, in the Q&A, we have Danica Lyons. Danica asks, is there information available anywhere that would help us to understand how the length of bus rides for children may be impacted by proposed changes? Manager Puzinoff?
Thank you very much for the question. We are working with Student Transportation Services on the busing analysis. So once that information is available, we will share that to the Q&A portion of the website. I guess that's a good opportunity for a plug for that website again. So tvdsb.ca/ONAAR. And there's a number of resources there, including the Q&A section. And there's actually the ability to subscribe to the Q&A page as well. So as soon as any updates are made, folks could be notified via email.
And again, if you didn't catch that website, your principals will all have that. And I can absolutely share that back out to our committees. Emily, did you have a follow-up question?
No, sorry, I forgot to take the raise off.
No worries at all.
Sean, I saw you had your hand up. Did you have another question for us?
I was just wondering, so you've projected all the student numbers. Now, I was informed by our previous principal at Northdale that she was under the impression that the new subdivision that's being built around the corner, the Thames Valley didn't know about it. Have we taken into consideration the new subdivision that is being built on the old hospital property in Woodstock and how that will affect Northdale's numbers and could potentially in turn affect the new school?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Sean. As you know, I've had that same dialogue with that administrator. Eric would be pleased to talk about how they come up with the numbers and how accurate they are.
Thank you for the question. So that subdivision has been included in the analysis. So the enrollment projections do include that new subdivision. And we assign, the way that we derive the projections is we assign expected yield based on the unit type. So we have factored that into the Northdale projections. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thanks so much, Eric. And I believe our next question comes to us from Melissa Cowell.
Hi, we had this area review a few years ago when Eastdale received a lot of students from the southwest part of town. Now, a lot of these students have just had that change and it's only been 2 years. What are your plans for like another area review if they have to be switched to Central and then possibly another school out this end? Like, how often are you going to be changing these kids and uprooting them and essentially, I don't know, they're so fragile at this age. Like, it's a lot to be moved once and now you're going to be moving them again. Like, how often are you going to be doing this?
Thanks for that question, Melissa. If you don't mind, I'll take that one. So I was part of that boundary review, as you know, and that section of students had correctly actually belonged to Southside Public School. We're out of boundary to Oliver Stevens, and then during that accommodation review ended up at Eastdale. So the reason that it's here is to provide families the choice of returning to a more proximal school, which is Central. I would expect through your leadership at the school that we would see some legacy agreements offered, considering that it would, for a lot of students, be a third school move in a short period of time. And certainly we'll take that into consideration while we're making our recommendations forward to the board. But it would be nice to have that support and hearing from parents that they would like the choice as well.
Superintendent Wright, just checking that I'm not missing any other hands that we
No,
might
I've
have
got a
up.
question in the Q&A from Thea. And Thea asks, would students be bused to the new school if they are on the far side of Highway 59? So I don't know, Manager Puzanov, if you have an answer for that right now.
Thank you for the question. So generally speaking, students that reside in excess of 1.6 kilometers away from their school in the elementary panel would get transportation. With that being said, once the boundary change decision is made, Student Transportation Services essentially conducts a fulsome analysis of who would qualify for busing, and families would be notified at that time. Thank you.
Thea, just so you know, part of our process in working with the community as well is to look at sort of high yield crossings and work with them about crossing guards, et cetera, to support any high traffic areas. So although there's an analysis from a busing standpoint, there's additionally an analysis from a safety and walking standpoint. Having just gone through this in Woodstock, I can tell you that the community is very responsive to that, and they're excellent to work with, and our planning department has a great relationship with them. So as we develop plans, we'll certainly take into consideration any of those walking routes that might need some conversations at the community level as well.
I believe our next question is from Cole Yanksar in the chat. We recognize that there have been some challenges with the septic capacity at Hickson due to ongoing student overcapacity. This area is currently fenced off for safety with snow fences. Is there a provision in the budget to address and improve this situation? I'll pass that over either to...
Yeah, I'll take that, thank you.
Superintendent Wright.
Having most recently supervised the school and also being intimately involved with the situation, I'll say, Cole, that, yeah, thanks for the question. So the septic bed there is and was at end of life. And although certainly some folks are attributing it to overcapacity, we have had a plan to regularly pump that septic bed. It's being monitored on honestly a week by week basis, and there is a plan to replace that entire septic bed by this point into next year. So we're just working through some zoning applications and some other ministry regulations in order to get that done. But the funding is there, the plan is there, and we're working closely with EZT to get that done.
Melissa, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. I was just wondering that if the students at any of these schools were given legacy, so to speak, so even if they were being sent to Hickson or Zora or even Eastdale, would they be given transportation or would that be put onto the parents?
Again, the public input from parents is certainly welcome in that process. Fundamentally, that would be a decision from the trustees when they're making that decision about whether or not transportation is possible as a legacy student. But certainly feel free to provide that input in your report as well.
Thank you.
Melissa Wheaton, your hand is up as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Melissa, such a great name. I was just curious. I don't know if this is the right time, but will you discuss kind of a little bit more about the responsibilities and what's expected out of the subcommittees, just so that we're all on the same page? I think there's a lot to take in, and I know that you talked about it briefly at the beginning, but are you going to overview it again before we close?
Manager Puzanov, would you like to take that one?
Sure, and thank you very much for the question, Melissa. So the slide deck will be circulated with some of those details, but we also provide subcommittees with template materials, and those template materials include a subcommittee report template that essentially provides a breakdown of the information that we would ask subcommittees to get from their school communities when the meetings happen. So certainly, after this evening, if there's specific questions that you'd like to ask, we're more than happy to meet with you and to answer any questions that you may have or provide any additional information that you think is needed. Thanks.
So the subcommittees are like, are they doing in-person meetings at the school? Like, I think that's where I'm not 100% sure on what the expectation is.
Yep, so the meetings would be held in association with your school principals. Those typically would be held in a hybrid format, if at all possible, to allow folks some flexibility. But most of our schools are at the very least meeting in person to obtain that feedback.
Okay, thank you.
We've got a question from Thea in the chat as well. Is there a reason that Tollgate School does not reopen? Manager Puzanov?
Thank you very much for that question. So Tollgate was closed a number of years ago, recognizing the need that we have in the community in Woodstock for a new school. Tollgate certainly wasn't or isn't large enough to accommodate the number of students that we need to accommodate in this part of the community. So there's no plans to reopen Tollgate. The new Woodstock Elementary School is sized appropriately to accommodate growth for the near term, and we're certainly looking at new capital into the future if it's needed to continue supporting the growth of the community. But at this point in time, there's no plans to reopen Tollgate.
Superintendent Wright, I'm not seeing any other hands or questions. Are you?
I am not, but we'll give everybody, oh, Crystal, sorry, no, Melissa Wheaton, could you not do grades 6 to 8 at Tollgate? Superintendent Vogt, I wonder if you would answer from a facilities standpoint, just a little bit about Tollgate so that we can finish that chat around why we're not reopening Tollgate.
Yeah, maybe Manager Puzanov can supplement some of my questions, but it is a very small school site. I believe there's 5 classrooms within the school, maybe 6. I can't remember off the top of my head. The school is not on municipal services, so that is also a challenge for us. So just at this point in the development of Oxford and Woodstock, that location and the size of the school is not making sense for us.
Thank you so much, and we'll move on to Crystal's question. Is planning looking into the future? For example, looking at high school numbers so we do not have these issues again in a few years with kids when they all move into secondary school. Manager Puzanov?
Thank you for that question. Yes, we do monitor development activity, as Eric alluded to earlier, and certainly we're cognizant during our projection process that kids will progress through to secondary school, and we are actively making sure that we're ready to accommodate them when that happens.
And Superintendent Wright and I both supervise elementary and secondary schools within the city of Woodstock, and we've already started that conversation with our capital planning team about the substantive growth in our Woodstock secondary schools, and we'll continue that conversation. So that's definitely already on the radar for the team and the superintendents that supervise the schools as well. Superintendent Wright, any other questions?
No, I don't see any questions in the chat or any hands up. We'll give everybody about another minute to populate the chat.
We'll just move to that next slide with next steps, but we'll pause before we start talking about it.
That's perfect, thank you.
As you can see, just to recap for you, there is that website again, which Superintendent Wright talked about earlier, as did our planning team of Eric and Ben. And we would just like to highlight some of the things that Manager Puzanov talked to in terms of our next steps. So as was referenced, the next step in the process is the holding of that school level AARC subcommittee meeting, ideal in a hybrid format so that you can have those who wish to attend in person, but also allow for online participation as well. The purpose of this is to gather public feedback regarding the public changes under consideration. The Thames Valley Administrative Team will be providing AARC members with this slide deck, as we mentioned, to include as part of their respective school level meetings, as well as templates that Manager Puzanov referred to for meeting agendas, minutes, subcommittee report regarding the school's community input. And at this time, we would like to thank you for taking the time to join us. And please know that there is a team here, both in planning and your own SOs, our superintendents, to support you and your principal as you're trying to answer questions and gather the feedback you need to support your school community. Again, thank you and deep appreciation for your participation this evening. And we will remain online just for a minute. Not seeing any more questions though, Superintendent Wright?
Not at this point, thank you.
So with that, we will thank you very much and know that we are always available following the meeting. Should you have questions that come to mind a little bit later on, we're here to support you. Have a wonderful evening and all the best with your subcommittee meetings as you move forward through the process.